Well, that was a surprise. Both the game and the cheeky appearance by us. My goodness, the things I do in the breaks that no one needs to know about. Okay, well, interesting turnaround there at the end for the Chiefs. Obviously, they take out the second game of the day. Spawn, how did it go so wrong so fast for Legacy?
Honestly, I don't know. I was sitting there, I was memeing in Twitch chat, I was having a good old time. I actually had already ordered my dinner, Nick. I'd stopped drinking my coffee because I was like, oh, this is going to be an early night. I don't want to have too much caffeine. I might be in bed
Please.
really soon. Um, and then Legacy set up a really nice Baron. They were two-manning it. They weren't taking any damage. And the Chiefs won their first fight of the game after that Baron. Pushed straight down middle lane, and it ended. So there we go. Game over.
There you go. Game over indeed. I mean, it's a bit of a hard one because the entire time the game's on, we're going, right, this is basically a wash for Chiefs. Legacy have this. How much can you take away from that win for the Chiefs compared to the gameplay that they sort of like put on throughout the night? Because I don't want to say that they didn't deserve the win, but did they deserve the win?
Okay, so a couple of things went right for the Chiefs, and I think it started in pick ban. So they took away the Lee Sin, which is a really good early game jungler. They're obviously going to have a lot more pressure on the map with Lee Sin. For everyone asking what I get for McDonald's, I got some cheeky Mickey D's. So I think they had a lot more pressure on the map early. And then they also went with Camille top lane. And Thiam was able to pick up first blood and generated a ton of his own pressure this game. And pressure is going to be like a key word that I say for the next couple of sentences. They also had pushing mid lane, which obviously push in League of Legends provides first access and provides more pressure. And then they had double counter pick bottom lane. So Aphelios is strange because it keeps getting through pick bans. But Varus does seem to be the answer to it. How does it get through pick bans? The only answer I've liked to Aphelios so far is actually Legacy versus Chiefs Week 10, where they played Bard Syndra into it. And the reason I like that was because Bard picks on a mobile 80 carries really well, and Syndra has a ton of early game pressure that Aphelios just doesn't have, to be perfectly frank. So every other team, I think, should be banning it. Only Vital and Rare have lost on Aphelios out of the top 4 teams. Legacy and Chiefs have never lost when they had Aphelios on their team. I do think he's kind of the strongest champion on the patch still, so I don't have a great answer to how he keeps getting through. But Varus does beat him early, and Senna will beat Yuumi, right? So the picture I'm trying to paint for you is you have pressure jungler and 3 winning lanes. So this should have been a much better early game for the Chiefs. It wasn't, but I liked the changes that they made.
The You were talking mid-game about the Herald swap there. The idea that, we mentioned it after the first game, that Legacy have this ability to be able to sort of let you take your time, set up, and then still take advantage of that. The lesson you kind of take away from that is that you can't give Legacy any more time than they absolutely need. And for you, that's what Chiefs were doing a lot throughout that game.
Yeah, and it starts with this weird Herald flip. And, I mean, I just spoke about how good the Chiefs' lanes were and how they were set up for success. And what do they do at like 8.5 minutes into the game? They decide that laning phase must end for some reason. They pick up Varus and Senna, they put them into the Herald, and they take down Herald, they take down top turret. And you might be thinking, Spawn, what are you talking about? Like, that's a trade in gold, that's good. But you've just given all of the gold to Aphelios. Like, why do you want to trade with this champion when you've got a counter pick bottom lane? Like, the reason you generally break lanes is if the lanes are going terribly, and, you need an out. Like, you want laning phase to end. You want a deep lane for maybe one of your crappy side laners that's got ganked a million times or something to actually be able to go and farm. But that's not what they were doing. They're just breaking lanes for the sake of breaking lanes. And I think that Legacy really abused that. Second Rift Herald as well. Chiefs did their early setup thing. They thought it was all clear, and then Babip had snuck into a brush and one hit Katsuri, so that was kind of bad. But I think, this game was much more of the same throughout early mid-game. I think that Legacy really, everything was in their favor until that last fight. They probably should have still won that game.
The how much of a safety net is the fact that Chiefs, I don't want to just say Chiefs, but like the loser of this game go down into the lower bracket. How much does that sort of play into the minds of players that they go, well, we have a second chance for this, we can make another run, and we're making a run against the teams that, we have kind of dominated throughout the split?
To be perfectly honest, I don't think much. we've had weekends where it's like we play Mammoth first and like Legacy second and stuff like that. And it's still so hard to prepare for the Legacy game because all you're doing is thinking about who your next opponent is. And it's like, even though it might be Mammoth, you know, a team that was last on the ladder, you don't want to sleep on them. You want to take them absolutely seriously. So I don't think either of these teams would be thinking about the second life yet. I think it would be bad for your mentality if you were. I think they really want to win this one, get the free buy into the OPL final. And I think you can see that because the Chiefs played really desperate in that last 10 minutes. They were doing... when the jungle is really strong... I have this tactic that I like to use myself, Nick, and it's like, well, there's only one jungler. So if we all play like idiots, only one of us will die, as long as we play like idiots in different areas of the map. So you could see that Thien was like hard pushing bottom lane. Claire's like hard suicide pushing top lane. Mid lane's getting pushed as well. And Babip's like, well, I can't kill all of you. Like, I'm just going to go kill Thien twice. And sure, he gets 2 kills, but all of a sudden then Claire has an extra item, right? Because he's been split pushing as well. So that's really, like, I saw Twitch chat actually flaming the chase for it. But that's actually, like, it's really good desperate League of Legends. If your lanes are pushed out, it's very hard to close the game off one mistake, right? You have to grab a creep wave from somewhere. And then also, it kind of does, incentivize them to go to neutral objectives. And you always feel like if you're behind, the best thing that you can hope for is when you're alive and they're alive, they decide to hit Baron, and then you somehow win. Like, that somehow, like, I say it all the time, don't hit Elder Dragon because you're just giving them a way to win the game. Don't hit Baron, you're just giving them a way to win the game. Teams keep doing it. I mean, they just took the 50-50. Croc didn't steal it, but they got a good team fight, and then they win the game.
So, what are Legacy taking away from this? Because it's one of those things where you go, it feels like they should have won. Are they changing anything going into Game 3? The small lessons to take away, I guess, for the final fight there. But what does this do to their mindset heading into the next game?
I don't think much. I think that they would still think they're the better team after that game, and they just made one really stupid choice. And while the Chiefs made bad choices, like at 10 minutes, at 14 minutes, like at 20 minutes, like those choices don't lose you the game. But because of death timers, if you make one bad choice at 35 minutes, you lose the game. So I think that's if I was Legacy coach, that's what I'd be saying to the guys. Like, be really positive. You won 90% of that game. Like, you just lost it at the end. Maybe he has a different read on the game because Jensen is actually a little bit more stricter than I am as a coach as well. But I would be pretty happy with my team. I would feel like this could very easily be a 3-1, if not a 3-2.
This is one of those situations where legacy to legacy fans, it's like they had an affair, but it was just this one night drunken thing, and they're like, it was one mistake. It was just one mistake. We've been so good, just ignore it. I'm sorry. I'll take away whatever I need to take away from this, but I promise it'll never happen again.
I'll never drink again.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if it does happen again. We're about to head into Game 3 of Chiefs versus Legacy. And certainly, I was all ready to say that you should take that pot of coffee off the stove because you're suddenly going to have a bunch of free time. It's
going back on.
Until the last 2 minutes of that. Put the coffee back on. Warm it back up. Put it in the microwave. Whatever it is you do with your coffee at 5:58 p.m., whatever time zone I'm currently in. And let's settle in for potentially a 5 game, but at least a 4 game Chiefs versus Legacy, and the Macca's Jam Select.
If you're craving the taste of your favourites, head to Macca's for a fast, safe and contactless drive-through experience. For your Macca's run, contact-free, we'll be here.
Well, the coffee's on. It's going to be a big game here, Rusty. Game number 3, 1 apiece right now. Legacy in such a commanding situation, they looked like they were about to close things out, but one Baron spelled disaster from there.
Yeah, and I want to say surprising, because like the way that the first 2 games went, except for the result, you would be expecting to look at a 2-0 towards Legacy right now in this best of 5, but it's 1-1. So we've got the best of 3 to determine who the best team actually is here in the first round of playoffs, or the winners finals for the OPL playoffs. And I mean, it's exciting because we know that Legacy have the capabilities to just clean house and make this a 3-1. But we've also seen the resilience of the Chiefs and what they have capable to them. If they can actually reach that peak and continue to adapt through this series, then we have a genuine BO5 on our hands.
Now this is interesting. We're going to see, for the most part, the same bans as before, but this is something that Spawn's always been quite vocal about, is the fact that the Ornn being banned on blue side. Why would you not take that one? They're going to go for an ADC priority again, and it seems to be, as it has been before, this is the focal point for these two teams. Get your ADCs on these picks that we know they're so damn good at.
But that's why. So the reason they go for the Ornn ban is because they're not going to first pick it this time. That's the first adaptation that they've really made coming into this one. They've gone for the Aphelios, they've taken it away from Raze, and they're not going to go for the Varus Time Kench themselves. Now, I will say in response, I think it's fairly easy to look at something like the Ezreal Yuumi and just play a weak side bot lane. I don't know if that's how Raze wants to play this, however. You know, the Misfortune's still available. And again, Skibby, Galio with no hesitation, they're high on this pick right now.
Yeah, they're loving it, absolutely. And I mean, you can understand to a part, you know, it's fantastic at locking members in place, gives you very good defensive capabilities as well as aggressive ones. But, you know, if you're going into a team comp that loves to play team fight, Galio will offer a lot to that. But this is a lovely little pickup here from the Chiefs. They've gone for the Olaf, which is just going to run straight through Tally and say, we don't care what you present.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Olaf is one of those picks that will be fine into Galio compositionally, but scales off. And so, in a similar way to the Lee Sin when you consider scaling, but in very different means, you know, they're going to have a bit less engage this time while they've gone for the Aphelios Senna. So, range champions in bottom lane. And the concern with that is, like last game, the Galio still exists. So, if there is an Aatrox once again locked in by Legacy, with regardless of what the jungler is, which could still be the Lee Sin as well, it's a hard life being those carries when someone who is meant to stand in front of you is just an Olaf that's running the enemy carries down. Azir's already banned, so keep that in mind. Like, this isn't the easiest game to be a carry on the Chiefs.
By no means, absolutely. And I mean, you talk about carries for the Chiefs, you talk about obviously now where Raze wanted to go with that. He has actually now locked down, and I think it's going to be a nice little pickup for him. It's going to give him some mobility, which he was desperately needing in the previous game. That he was having to use summoners pretty much on cooldown to not only escape pick potential when he was fighting mid-pro, but also in those fights where he's like dashing around and wanting to readjust because he knows that Chiefs have one target in mind: delete Raze, sort of snowball and escalate from there.
As far as I knew, the way that Kassadin operated in pick ban at the moment, Skimmy, was that you would ban it if you're going to pick the Azir, but they've banned both. So there seems to be a concern about the Galio matchups, and again, I have to look at this. They're forcing it as a second pick, and now they're banning a whole boatload of stuff away from the matchups. It's an odd force to me.
Where do Legacy decide to go with their jungle now? They're going to go back to the Lee Sin, which they found success in before. You saw Croc in those last few moments there, despite being down by 3 levels, was still able to have an impact. You know, the roundhouse kick, knocking up members, denying them from having an influence in a team fight, and by that time, you know, they've already got the job done with Clear popping off. So, nice pick here for Babbitt.
Yeah, most definitely is. Now looking at things that Topoon can play, though, because he's going to have to show something different in this one. You know, could default to a tank, even with that Ornn gone, maybe play something like a Maokai. Sion is actually something that he's played twice this split. I do think that, you know, to round out this composition, it would be nice to have something that can threaten the center and the Aphelios once again. So it may even be, depending on the matchup, and he's going to see what that is soon, the likes of a Gnar, which is kind of like a Topoon staple if he's going to be a hyper carry, but he has just seen his matchup, and I am so curious as to what he will pick now.
Yeah.
And it's just a tank.
It's going to be tank bashing. It's all about sustain in that one. It's interesting, right? Because they've respected really what that Azir presents to them, allowed the combo to go through, and Chiefs won't hesitate for a second to then lock that in place and guarantee themselves that pick. The slingshot potential of a Zack's going to cause, I suppose, the fights to go on for much, much longer. The ability to utilize his passive to cause disarray in those team fights for Legacy, and given that they've continued to have this very high priority on the Galio and the Yuumi, it's almost like Chiefs are slowly evolving how they want to handle it.
Yeah, a real spanner in the works here, though, from the Chiefs. You know, the Karma was banned away from them in the first game. They're able to pick that one up. The Zac is definitely that spanner, though, in the top lane. Something that has a high amount of threat to... I want to say, like, one of Zac's primary purposes is being able to threaten low mobility carries, which is, weirdly enough, what the Chiefs have and not what Legacy have. So this draft, to me, is a little bit like a pick what we like, you know, build a comp, but don't necessarily focus on countering their comp with what we're building. Just be comfortable with our own champions. Some of it could be taking away, like, maybe there is a concern that Topoon has a really good Zac top lane, and we were threatened by it. We'd rather have the Zac side of this matchup. Or, like, I don't know for certain. We haven't seen their practices. No. But yeah, I think that, you know, they've kind of just gone for what they want more than anything else.
I'm very curious to sort of see what kind of value they find with this one, because the first two games have definitely been a case of pushing those side lanes out, looking to get really massive advantages when those Rift Heralds are achieved. And I don't really imagine Zac to be synonymous with those kind of factors. He's not your typical Irelia or, you know, Camille looking to make those factors come online. But here we are, jumping into the Rift for game number 3 with both teams tied 1-1. Quick reminder that this is to decide the victor here goes and secures themselves a spot in the grand finals. Loser will have a second life, however, and will drop into the lower bracket to make a potential dream run back. So, all to play for here, Rusty. The coffee's online, the caffeine is there, and strap yourself in for a big one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to get that free run to the finals here, Skimmy, so this game, very important. The momentum builder from this third game of the series as well. Remember, it's just a best of 3 now to decide who gets to go straight to the finals. And we have some comfort being defaulted to once again for these teams. You know, at this point, we have to say Galio's comfort. It's just a reliable second pick for them that wants to be a part of the team fighting that we'll see. So that's something that, like, it's fine if it continues to work. And so far it has been okay. He had a shaky game too, though, against the Azir, but they banned the problem.
Yeah. The second game, it was much more about, you know, providing the shield across the rest of the team, aiming to make a zoning threat on that area of the map, as opposed to the knock-up that it subsequently offers. So, slight difference there. But I think the main thing for me is to sort of look at this top lane and see how Zac interacts.
Yeah, it's kind of a weak champion early. He's against the tank, so he's pretty reliant on just hitting those passive procs, and like will eventually be a strong champion in the matchup. But Maokai should be able to handle it pretty fine. And I think one major contrast here that we have to make known is, like, last game, it wasn't just the Azir in mid. It was like it was an outscaling to a degree of Chiefs over Legacy, but they've replaced that Azir with a Karma, and they've replaced their Diana. Sorry, not Diana, Camille, who scales in top lane nicely with a Zac. And it's a whole different can of worms here, really, from Chiefs stylistically through their whole comp and how they want to play this one out. Because you can't just sit back and outscale your opponents anymore. There are still some different considerations you have to take into effect here, like the Olaf scales off. Zac is an annoying tank, most definitely, and he's probably the one they'll have the hardest time dealing with to kill once the items are there. But then your own team's at high risk of dying from the opponent tanks as well.
Do you think it's fair to then assess that this is really Chiefs trying to up the tempo of this game and not make it so much of a slow, drawn-out fest where, you know, you're looking at that Miracle Baron play to try and get you guys online?
I mean, if they drafted to intentionally up the tempo, then absolutely, right? But that's kind of a cop-out answer. I mean, the way the Chiefs have drafted, they should up the tempo a little, at the very least.
Well, that's a flash forward. You can see that Croc for a second hesitated and thinking they're just in a situation where we can't make it happen. CK flashed forward with the root. Bit of a disconnect there between the support and jungle.
Yeah, I'm glad we watched Croc's point of view on that one, because that was a mess. It was very clear the communications we're going to continue this, or, you know, it wasn't announced that Croc was disengaging the area. So a flash wasted for a heal. Those trades go, you take those.
Yeah, that's a face check into a Galio taunt, and a lot of damage is going to come out between the mid and jungle. The 2v2 successful here for Legacy. As Croc is zoned away and has to burn himself through some of those consumable pots.
Now that was an interesting trade, and the reason that I find that one so interesting is if Croc continues to farm, he's currently fighting for a Scuttle Crab, we just sort of flash in mid from Tally as well. That only adds to the point. He'll be fine, Croc, because again, he's an Olaf, so he controls the Scuttle, he's going to continue farming. What really hurts is Tally teleported before that fight happened. Claire didn't use anything. So these trades, every single time that Tally wins a trade against Claire, if it's a health trade, he's actually losing. Because Claire's just going to come back now with full health, flash available, and there's no potions on a half health Galio has to recall again. So he's going to lose from this potentially, and it'll come back to hurt him a little bit.
Let's see what this actually means, as he has not opted for the double Doran's Ring start. He's actually gone for the Codex. Extra CDR, extra control now with that ward in the pocket as well. And this is going to give them mobility to really run at them. It's interesting, right, because that has been the game plan for these last 2 games from Chiefs. We talk about upping the tempo with some of these picks, but you look at some of those mid-game skirmishes where they're trying to find priority, and they are just running at members. And Karma's only going to obviously accentuate that much further to make it successful.
Very exciting trades happening in top lane. Top lane's just going to be pressing Q off cooldown. I don't think anything really changes up here for quite a while. He'll always have the push over the Zac. You know, if one champion wants to push in that lane, Maokai Q can cancel out Zac's E, and that's his only disengage. So it's very hard life to be the Zac for the moment. One full item, probably the turning point. If I was to make an assessment off the top of my head, probably around the Spirit Visage.
Yeah.
Is Claire is at risk. Never mind.
Yeah, Pepper hanging in the area. Will not be spotted by wards, but the Sonic Wave this time will connect as Tally is forced to take a fair chunk of damage from that one.
Yeah, not worth.
Just compound your point once again, right? He's not got the teleport, no flash, no nothing, and now going to be stuck under his tower without a pot.
Yeah, no potions, so he actually is at risk of being dove if he's not careful.
Ooh, flash
if that was
very aggressively
Mantru.
there for Claire, trying to get the kill, but in the nick of time, the shield is procured, really, and both members getting lethal range, and the action just continues everywhere, Rusty. We really are looking at a bit of a change of pace right now. Ray's finding the better exchange of this one, but he's going to get rooted in place, receive the exhaust as well. Isles puts the Yumi shield on top of him as Aerie gets involved at the last second. And even at the Dragon Pit, teleports are coming out because we're looking to make this happen.
Oh, we stole it.
Bad Bip does not miss those. He smite steals away. Now to 2v1. Croc is buying time, working that passive, getting stronger by the seconds.
TN's coming.
Out comes the slingshot, the flash response here is entrance. Everything being thrown at this exchange. Ray's disengaging over the wall and can fire shots from afar. Waiting for that first blood. Nobody wants to sacrifice it. Cell Division will delay it for a little bit longer. No teleport to come across. No protection to be used for assistance. And Tally gets first blood.
That was so delicate. There was very low health bars. Summoners used everywhere, and it just felt like the small, like a stiff breeze could have changed the outcome of that fight is how it felt. But at the end of the day, they were moving towards Legacy's side of the map, and that terrain advantage does prove to be very powerful as they hold the choke point. They end up getting that first blood. It goes on to Tally as well, so mid lane's been equalized, and Legacy find themselves in a very happy spot after what was a delicate series of events.
Very much so. Plenty of action all across the Rift. Teams now really looking to showcase their mechanics, willing to bring some attention to making this game a little bit easier to transition into. It's been rough at the best of times now. CK will respect that they're looking for a reset. Won't be able to prevent it, but has his eyes on the mark.
And so that's an accelerated Ezreal. You know, look at the CSD between these 80 carries at the moment. Ray's having a field day as far as farm is concerned. 72 at 8 minutes is not shabby at all. And then look at top lane. You know, you got your 20 CS lead up there for Topoon as well, and it was Tian that teleports into the fight in bottom lane. He's the one who suffers for it and dies, loses his passive as well.
Yeah.
And so things are starting to escalate, and it's only a small amount at the moment. So being able to stem that bleeding is nice, because the advantage they had in mid lane was negated from the kill, and you can see what's happening in those side lanes at the same time. Croc very clearly trying to be the difference maker here as he starts up the Drake. Unfortunately, it was stolen, and now he starts up the Herald, and we see what Babbitt can get done.
He's in the area and has level 6, so there's a potential factor to bear in mind. They won't be able to steal it away, but they are threatening towards a fight as the Nature's Grasp comes on out. That's going to be the Ragnarok instantly forced away. Flash over the wall to disengage. True Shot Barrage will not connect as they disengage to the left. Scary times.
Yeah, they got there first, so the bottom lane of Legacy able to rotate faster than their opponents. So if the fight happened, Legacy would have been able to clean that one up, which is why you see the flash away from Croc. The ultimate used early, full focus on that disengage, and they're successful in doing so. And so they are able to get the objective with very minimal cost on their end.
Both top side are rushing towards that Sunfire Cape. So going to be a little bit delayed on that Spirit Visage until he becomes that monster when he's using that unstable matter to collect all his globs and be a blob monster. That's how I like to describe it. It's interesting to see that CK has actually opted for the Executioner's Rush this time around, as opposed to going into your standard Serrated Dirk build and just being a Umbral Glaive monster.
Yeah, I think that it's still the correct decision. If you're ever playing Senna into Yuumi, and if there's like any threat of that healing being too powerful, which is pretty much always because it's a Yuumi, you probably want to rush the Executioner's Calling. We have seen Serrated Dirks into Executioner Calling. We've seen completed Umbral Glaives into it as well, but realistically, the sooner you have it, the less you have to worry about like having to buy it. It's just a good choice.
He definitely needs it to equalize this lane right now because Katsuri is sitting on completed boots, and that's basically it. Raze gets the Dream recall back with that CS lead that you've highlighted, which has, bear in mind now, been actually equalized. We're both sitting at 85. But with Rasheen and a tier, and he's well and truly on way to becoming online and becoming that monster that Israel's known for.
Yeah, and a part of that's because the early rotation of Raze and Riles up Riles. That's now their name together.
I like that, Riles.
I think we call them Rails.
Oh, yes. They're off
the rails. Because if they're losing, they could be off the rails.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Anyway, they rotated first to the Herald. So they actually, they spent more time on that pivot. And I think that, Waves crashing in bot lane, able to collect that one. They also collected mid lane while Raze was just passing through. Equalizing a bit of that CS difference for sure.
Well, Tapoon's had a fantastic time on this top side. That is a lane where that CS lead will not be transferred. It will stay as strong as it is, up by 20 still. He's going to come back with some completed Merc treads right now. So going to be a CC bot for sure if Makai wasn't that already. Maybe looking to exploit the fact that Croc is very reliant now on that Ragnarok to stay nimble as the second Drake of the game gets started up here.
Yep, Legacy are going to be the ones that start this fight off first. Chiefs, you can see them moving through the river. The steal attempt was looked at by Croc, but he's not going to get in smite range while the axe was thrown. So the second Drake of the game successfully secured by Legacy after the first one was a steal. Now how do they defend this charge from the Herald as 4 strong of Chiefs stand tall?
No teleports burnt to make that play come online, but a lot of gold is shared around the members of Chiefs, so all that present themselves in the mid lane. Only Zac down in the bottom side responding to this duo. And the slingshot himself in, not going to connect, but going to be much more focused on picking up as much CS here as possible.
Yeah, just being a deterrent. Minor nuisance to an Ezreal and a Yuumi as far as their mobility is concerned. Isles also playing zone defense, trying to let Raze recall because they know he has no mana. And so very aggressive stancing from this Zac, particularly with Korea CK coming down to the bottom lane as well to make sure that they're really able to bully them out. It'll actually be some turret pressure down in bottom lane as a result.
It's looking to be that way. Actually, Senna was the one down there for the meantime. We'll be going for a recall of our own to now join and assist Katsuri in the top side, which is the second game back-to-back now where it's been Chiefs that are the ones to actually force that lane swap. And Legacy are very content just staying bot side.
Yeah, and you have to really explore what the lane swap achieves. Is it because there's a teleport used and they're stuck down there? The answer to that one is obviously no. Is it because they want to get more money into their hands? Were they losing the lane? Like, is anyone really suffering that requires this? Is there even a Herald to take? The answer to all of that is no. I think they just flipped the map because it felt convenient to them at the time. That's honestly it. They'll get a couple plates bottom, but that's just because they punished the Ezreal having no mana, and they will get the teleport out of 10 who's in trouble.
They do indeed, and he will have that Cell Division back up online. And Tapoon is frantically searching to try and get that. He may just look to burn him to death. He gets the Twisted Advance on in. It will now connect. Unfortunately, for Raze, he's unable to connect with an assist there. The teleport's going to come on out to make him invulnerable for a second. Now it's going to be a 2v1. The respawn comes out. You can see Tally in the area responding. We'll have that Hero's Entrance if he needs to jump on in. He's looking for it. He just gets the 1v2. He doesn't care. He looks at Claire and laughs. And
He's
even Legacy's mid lane is just rotate back to lane.
There was an Athene's Karma as well. There was shielding coming out constantly with heals behind it. Topu just being the old Maokai. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason he gets that kill is he cancelled the Zaki. Nice predict.
Yeah, Chiefs really trying to make something happen in that top side to equalize what just happened before, but now he rocks up to this lane. A Fremantle! What can they find from this, however? Ragnarok has already been burnt, but it's not the ideal angle for Yuumi to lay down the roots. Disengage after disengage here. She's unable to equalize there.
Yeah, summoners being used left, right, and center, but really we haven't seen any kills resulting from all of these summoners being burned. We saw the first one onto the Zac, and now we saw a Maokai get the second one onto him as well, starting to get out of control as far as tankiness goes, his Topoon, but he teleported for it, which means that the Chiefs do have that slight edge with the teleport right now. They can put Tian down in a side lane, which is the lane assignments they want, and they'd be poised best for this Herald take.
Well, that's what they're looking for right now. Babbitt is the one stuck in the pit as it stands, with Raze flanking on the side, doing a fair chunk of damage. Down comes Ares Entrance, getting a double man knockup. Topoon just deletes Katsuri from the game. She's showing herself to try and be a threat here, but just getting absolutely bodied.
Yeah, that was the 1-2 punch there from Legacy. It was a kick from Babip into the waiting arms of Topu, the twisted advance on someone mid-air, and there was not a single moment where Katsuri had an opportunity for counterplay. He was just, that was baseball with his body.
Didn't have Ragnarok at that time and is going to be forced to use it now as the members of Legacy look to force this turret on down. He's actually going to pay the ultimate price from tanking the aggro of that turret. I'm sure very frustrated at that Rift Herald from delaying his death, but regardless, shutdowns are achieved.
Yeah, I think Croc will be happy with that 1-for-1 because it was a shutdown off Topoon, so in terms of gold income, could be worse, but he still loses the turret, trades his life for it. It is his first death of the game. And so Legacy still seemingly one step ahead. You know, this whole series, we were close to being 2-0 up, and we're close to being 2-0 up with Legacy now having a 3k gold lead. It just feels like they have such a good read on the early game, and they're always ahead of the Chiefs.
Yeah, they're just always at the right place at the right time, and especially if you're getting Topoon playing like this, where he's commanding that much threat from your opposition and unable to close them out. I get very concerned as to how Tien responds here.
And Tien really is the one suffering. Like, last game he was suffering. This is now the third game of the series. He finds himself 0-3 on the Zac. And you don't want to be behind on that Zac. If a tank... Skippy, this is League of Legends 101. After rule number 1, which is don't chase singed. If a tank is behind, they stay behind. And if a tank is ahead, they stay ahead. And then you look at top lane, and you get concerned for the Chiefs.
Oh, he's got the makings of what would have been a Sunfire Cape, but now starting to drum up any form of economy that he has to get that Spirit Visage online, which he so desperately needs. We see now another engage take place in the bot lane. And he's just going to get zoned away again, Rusty. Forced to try and disengage himself away. Flash kicked. Absolutely clapped. A non-factor in this one.
Yeah, they're dancing on the blob. They're waiting for the minions to get there. They're just going to have a moment. They're going to sit on Zac's blob. Poor guy is now 0-4. Tian having definitely one of the worst best of 5s of his career. He's only been in 3 of them, as far as I know, but this is definitely the worst one so far.
Yep, Legacy definitely knowing, or letting him know that experience is a factor here. And that you may have had a fantastic split, but a best of 5 is a whole new beast to try and tackle. 0-4, got the Spirit Visage online finally. Once the Cell Division comes back to as his passive, then we'll be able to look to try and contest these subsequent objectives that will be up and available.
Yeah, he has himself a makeshift stopwatch by design, being Zac having the Cell Division. So that's nice. Yeah, being a 0-4 tank does mean that you will probably just be dying very quickly in fight. So at the very least, you'll have that going for you. You've still got a decent amount of farm on that Aphelios, and that probably, once again, is going to be the person to look for.
Yep.
Olaf, we've spoken about, will drop off as time progresses, but you've got a Karma. So empowers a little bit more that Olaf's strength. It's just that the opposing side, like, he's going to be tank shredding. So you can see it's a Black Cleaver rush, and maybe build some tank items himself. But like primarily, if I was the Olaf, I'd just be trying to help kill the Galio. Or, you know, just try and pick apart the people that are threatening Katsuri and Korea CK, because they're the MVPs in this one that you need to protect at all costs.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thing I want to add to that then is, you see Legacy are on Soul Point. The next Dragon comes up in 3 minutes. What items or what kind of conditions do Legacy, first of all, need to meet? And are they willing to, sacrifice it if Chiefs look to contest?
And Chiefs will contest. what the Legacy do is just secure the soul by any means possible. They're just like a Maokai with a mountain soul. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's just going to be dirty. Game just actually probably ends from Maokai alone if they're able to get that one. Ezreal also the kind of champion where if he's pressured by physical damage can go the Iceborne Gauntlet. And now you give him 2 Mountain Drakes for extra tankiness. I mean, it's gross. What a Legacy do is they keep Chiefs at bay. They stop them from even getting near the Drake once it's up. And so far, it looks like they're continuing to pressure in that jungle.
Yep, they're trying to force things out with the Moonlight Vigil using the Graviton Cannon to lock them in place, but Legacy are just so safe and secure by the entrance to that river that there's just no follow-up as the duo of the Chiefs expend their ultimates.
And they're able to disengage. You know, we've got plenty of time where not a lot's going to be happening on the Rift for the next minute odd. They're going to have a very prolonged amount of period here to set up for the Drake itself, and I do think that's going to be the only objective looked at by both teams. The threat of a Baron being taken right now is extremely low. There's just so many tanks, really, and there's not a lot of Blade of the Ruined King users at the moment. So we're looking at the Drake, and we're going to have red side jungle pressure. Both teams looking at the Chiefs' red side quadrant of the map, getting their wards there, getting mid priority first though. And you can see that the Chiefs on the other side, they'll try and sneak some wards down to Baron, just play it safe. But most of their priority, we should know where it goes now.
Yeah, straight towards that. And straight towards securing it, which may now be a much bigger and much more successful factor. No potential Baron steal like we saw in the last game. Now that Trinity Force has been completed here by Raze, the bulwark of this composition, the guy that you always look to make those kind of flashy plays.
Oh, and we're seeing this again. I mean, so my point that I just made was that we're looking at prioritizing control of the red side quadrant of the map. And now, like, how are you going to do that? Usually, when you play center, you'll have an Umbral Glaive, and you'll have a sweeper. So single-handedly, you can control almost that entire quadrant before your jungler even comes into place extra vision, and it's amazing. You can one-tap wards, right? But it's the Forbidden Idol rush here from Korea CK. 2 games in a row, he's going to look towards, I guess, the Mikhails. It seems like his number one priority is getting people out of the Galio taunts, if that's going to be the primary engage source of Legacy. And it's just such a defensive focus. Flashes in.
He does indeed. Katsuri is forced to flash away, burn double summoners, getting himself out of harm's way, but now completely zoned out from the fight. Tien pops the bouncy castle, and that's all she wrote as the dragon is up and alive. No casualties suffered here. Legacy incredibly strong, and they're going to get themselves a Mountain Soul here now, Rusty.
And I think if you're ahead, you can go that Mikhails, you know? If you're behind, can you afford to go a defensive item on a carry champion and make your vision control objectively worse is the question. Your Chiefs, they've started this Baron. It's at 4,000. This may be the fight.
Oh, they are rushing it, and they're going to actually get it. But now the members of Legacy come in to stem the bleeding, deny as many of those buffs as possible. They find one in the jungle. Now they're going to flash over the wall to take out Katsuri. The kick, the wave, the dash, everything, Rusty. Everything is done to make this a living nightmare for the boys in blue.
Yeah, but they do get the Baron. They're able to pick up the objective against the flow. You know, the Mountain Drake secured. Legacy, they left the Drake the second they suspected the Baron was being done. But they don't get there in time. And, you know, I just mentioned that it may not be done very quickly, but when you put an Olaf and a Aphelios together and you've got the right weapons on that Aphelios, you can still smack that Baron down. They do exceptionally well. If they didn't get Baron there, you worry that Legacy just get it and end the game, right? So that's a big deal.
They do hold on for just a little bit longer now, but the top lane turret will fall as a result. You can see Zac on the flank looking to try and make things happen right now. Doesn't have the bounce, but definitely has the damage to assist in tanking multiple members as they look to sit from afar. Seal Division will now come online as Tally looks to disengage himself out of harm's way. Members are very low. Raze is the one to secure that kill. Now Tapoon, as tanky as he may be, is looking to survive for as long as possible. Just has so many heals coming on through, always assisted by the Spirit Visage. The mobility that this Chiefs composition presents, aided by the Karma, is running these members down. Raze, on a sliver of health, survives, picks himself up a double kill. A final effort here by the Galio to try and present a quadra kill on the dinner table. Will net Chiefs in a full disengage, but there is so much mobility, they can just run them down, Rusty, and deny all this Baron pressure.
Here goes Ezreal Yubi. Skibby, what can you say about that one? Raze is just a beast, and he's got Isles standing beside him as well. Now 0-0-10 on that Yubi. And the difference maker here, right, is that's it, micro team fight. Legacy didn't seem like they were in the best spot overall to win that entire team fight. They're against the Baron up opponents. Tien is the one engaging this, and he engages brilliantly. But I think it's funny to point out how little Korea CK actually does to, like, if he was dealing damage with damage items, there's a chance that more people die here significantly faster. But you've got the Mountain Drake, you've got a whole host of Tien that was purchased just by how tanky they are and the disengage that was forced from them. And then it's all about keeping Raze in the fight. He gets the first kill, 0 HP to his name. Like, absurdly close before Isles gets the passive proc, gets the heals on. And that's it. If he survives there, they actually, as you can see, turn around and kill Katsuri. But if Seta built what I would constitute as the standard items, maybe that fight's different. It's just worth considering.
But it's interesting, right? Because it brings it back to that narrative at the start of this game. Oh, we're going to see an Executioners be rushed here. That's interesting, you know? It makes life a little bit easier for the laning phase and to try and win that 1v1 matchup. But we've seen in the games of the past when he has gone for the center, he's actually gone for those, you know, Dirks. He's gone for that lethality. He's gone for the Umbral Glaive. So it's that trade that's gone across. And this is that kind of mental mind game that CL's going to have to wonder. If Yuumi and Galio are going to be this massive priority, what is our best take at this? Because as you say, they've sacrificed so much in the vision department.
Yeah, and I don't want to discredit, like, hard out what his decision was. We've already justified it, which is why we're speaking towards the other end of the coin here. But at the end of the day, they don't have enough damage anyway. Legacy are able to at least bring back that team fight, equalize it. And that's against the Baron buffed up opponent. So they completely quell that threat. And now they're pressuring multiple lanes at once.
Well, it's been a flawless performance here by Rails. They're very much in this game. So much power online for these two members as they look to try and now assist Tally, who has been jumped upon by Olaf. Out comes the center cannon, providing a shield, assisting him in his disengage attempt, but you can see this tower, very fragile. I'm sure Chiefs do not want to fight under this.
Ray's ultimate going wide there on the Ezreal. Still pressuring in that mid lane is the minion waves, though. The inner turrets will be free, so Chiefs just trying to, you know, contest while they can, but not go all in on that threat. Croc goes very aggressively. It's fair to say he does have to waste the Ragnarok for that. But he is still fine. He is still able to disengage. And just a little bit more money into the pockets of Legacy as we're hitting that point, Skimmy, where both objectives are going to be up at once. Both key objectives are the Elder Drake and the Baron buff.
Yeah, we definitely find ourselves in a familiar bit of territory where Legacy up by 4k gold. They've got every single dragon to the name now with the Soul 2. You start to wonder, you know, when it comes to that fight, what can be achieved? Only one structure's been taken down by the Chiefs so far in this game, but that didn't stop them last.
Yeah, last game was weird. Like, Legacy were in control until they lost the game, and I don't want to say that this game is by any means the same. There is some key differences. You know, Tally's not the one who's falling behind. There's actually an equal share of the deaths. Whereas last game it was like insta kills on Tally, and then it made 4v5s or, you know, 4v4s in situations where they were behind the Chiefs, and that helped a lot. So things are a little bit different in this one. We'll see how Chiefs go.
Well, they've had enough. They want to force the objective. They want to force that fight right now. Tien's the one that jumps on in, but the Nature's Grasp is going to come trailing on through this mid lane to lock everybody in place, race the kill target. But what can Croc do? Very little with the assistance of the rest of his team. Babbitt is commanding so much respect and just opening up so much room for this Ezreal to maneuver within. You can't kill this tree, and especially when the cat jumps on top of your heads. They are farming you in your own base. Structures are a non-factor. Legacy find the ace.
They're so tanky, man. Give it that Maokai and Mountain Soul. Even Tally on that Galio with the Mountain Soul. They're just overbearing. At the end of the day, they were able to win the team fight. They'll get themselves the victory here, Skimmy. They'll put themselves up 2-1 in this best of 5.
Legacy don't make the same mistake twice here. They find a fight. They get full stop on, but they have the damage, the tankiness, and the skill to do it justice. They lead this best of 5 now, 2-1.
And a much better game closeout from Legacy. They still get the leads that they got in the second game, but they consolidate it decently. There was still some defiance here, though, from the Chiefs' side. You know, 22-minute Baron take, very much against the grain. Great call from them, and they get it fast enough, and they're almost able to get completely out. It's the follow-up. It's the next fight. And one key difference in this game was that the Chiefs went less into the scaling route. They put a tank for TN in top lane, and they still have a super supportive ranged champion in bot lane. And that is coming back to hurt them just a little bit against what is Legacy, constantly team fighting.
Yeah, I think what we want to probably see, well, I mean, at least I want to see, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that too, is it feels like Tien is getting bullied by Tapoon in Tapoon's flexibility to, switch between assassins, tanks, enchanters, you name it. You definitely see Tien pop off the most when he's on the likes of an assassin, but the Akali has always been taken away from him. We're seeing now also with Korea CK, this massive love towards the center. I want to see him on those blitzcranks, those freshes, those like hard engaged supports where he can make things happen. Because when he's sitting back like that, it's not finding a success, I suppose, you'd look traditionally in the center, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you mentioned top lane. Babip's just been putting him through the rinser, man. He's made life miserable up there for TN, so that's a pretty big factor.
It is indeed. Well, regardless of all that, it is 2-1 at the moment for Legacy. 1 game away from giving themselves that spot in the grand finals. We'll find out in game number 4 right after this break.